The first time I ever felt like an adult, really felt it, was when we finally moved into that crooked little house on the edge of town. It had peeling white paint, a slanted porch that creaked like it hated us, and plumbing that moaned louder than I did after a double shift. But it was ours. We didn't have much, but what we had, it felt real. Like maybe I was finally building something that no one could take from me. I was 21, wide-eyed and running on cheap ambition. My boyfriend, Logan, and I had scraped together every cent we could manage, his delivery tips and my retail paychecks, and we turned that rundown shell into a home. We scoured thrift shops for furniture, got second-hand curtains from his aunt, and laid down rugs to cover the warped floorboards. Every piece in that house told a story. Every scratch, every dent, every stain, it was ours. Money was tight. Hell, it was non-existent most weeks. Logan delivered Chinese food. Came home reeking of grease and fried wontons. Shoes sticky from spilled sweet and sour sauce. I worked part-time at a discount clothing store and hated every minute of it. Fake smiles, rude customers, endless folding. We made just enough to keep the lights on and ramen in the pantry. But there was another stream, too. Quiet. Unofficial. We'd mostly a little Molly, some acid when the college kids were back in town. Just enough to keep things moving, nothing too wild. Our circle was small. Trusted. Close. Rachel was the closest. She'd been my best friend since high school. Loud, sharp, funny as hell. She had this way of making everything feel like an inside joke. Her brother Rick was the opposite. Too quiet. Shifty. He always looked like he was plotting something behind those watery eyes. I never liked him, but he was Rachel's blood, and blood buys a lot of passes. His girlfriend Raina was a walking contradiction. Gorgeous and wild, with a kind of reckless hunger in her eyes. She was always chasing something. Chaos, a thrill, maybe just attention. They were always at our place, sitting on our ratty couch, drinking cheap beer, playing video games, or picking at whatever Logan brought home from the restaurant. They loved sampling whatever new inventory I had on hand. Strictly friends and family, I used to joke. They laughed. Took more. It felt good. Like I was the center of something. The provider. The one who made the fun happen. They'd call me a queen when I handed out free tabs. Tell me I had the golden touch. I believed them. Of course I did. Even with the chaos, there was something sacred about our setup. We weren't rich. We weren't important. But we had carved out this little world with our bare hands. A world where the music was loud, the nights were long, and the rules were ours. And then the call came. Not yet the call, but a different one. The kind that makes your stomach twist for no reason. My parents were dragging me upstate for some family nonsense. A birthday or anniversary. I don't even remember now. Logan stayed behind, working nights, holding the fort. It should have been fine, but something didn't sit right. Not the weather, not the road, not the way the wind pushed against the car windows like it was trying to get in. I kept glancing back, like I'd forgotten something important, but couldn't name what. At a rest stop, I found a payphone. Called Logan. "Can you do me a favor?" I asked. He sighed. I just finished a delivery. "What's up?" "My coin box. The antique one. Can you hide it? Please. I don't know why. I have a bad feeling." "Sabrina, come on." "Please." Silence on the line. Then, "Fine. Jesus. Where do you want me to put it?" I told him. He grumbled, but said, "Okay." I could practically hear the eye roll in his voice. I thanked him 3 times before hanging up. That should have been enough. But it wasn't. Not even close. And I hadn't even begun to understand what I was about to lose. 2 days into the trip, Logan called me. I just stepped outside my cousin's house to smoke a cigarette behind the garage when my prepaid buzzed in my pocket. I knew before I answered. "Hey," he said, voice tight. I turned away from the light coming through the window and stared into the dark. What happened? They hit the house. Everything inside me stopped. The cigarette slipped from my fingers. I didn't even feel it burn out against my shoe. I heard him pacing. I could picture it perfectly. his free hand dragging through his hair, the cords of the landline stretched to their limit as he talked. I got home from my shift. Front door was open. The stereo's gone. So is the lockbox. The stash, it's all gone. I swallowed hard, already numb. The coins. He hesitated, and my stomach flipped. No, they're still there, right where I hid them. I leaned against the wall and slid down, gravel biting into the backs of my thighs. The coin box, untouched, a box filled with old, rare, valuable metals, completely ignored. But they took the weed, the acid, the ecstasy, the money. Only what someone who knew what we had would take. No signs of forced entry. No broken glass. No kicked-in doors. No random ransacking. They didn't even touch the TV. Just the stash. I didn't cry. Not then. My body was doing that thing where it was too angry to process it all at once. Like everything had dropped into a bottomless pit and I couldn't find the edges to hold on to. Did you call the cops? He sighed. No. What am I supposed to say? Hey, someone stole our illegal business inventory. Right. Of course not. After we hung up, I sat there in the dark behind my cousin's garage for over an hour. I didn't say a word to anyone. I didn't smoke. I didn't move. I just stared at nothing, listening to every thought crash into the next like a car wreck with no brakes. I knew who it was. It wasn't some random junkie or bored teenager looking to pawn a speaker. This was too clean, too specific, too safe. Only someone who knew I was out of town. Someone who knew Logan's schedule. Someone who knew what we had, where we kept it, and how to get in without drawing attention. Rachel, Rick, Raina. They were the only ones who came around regularly, the only ones we shared everything with. Hell, I even told Rachel about the trip. She laughed and asked if I was going to survive 2 whole days with my family. I remember that laugh now, how hollow it suddenly felt. I told Logan to change the locks. Told my parents I wasn't feeling well and needed to go back early. They offered to come with me. I said no. I didn't want their sympathy. I didn't want their worry. I wanted silence. And I wanted clarity. The drive back felt longer than it should have. Every familiar road felt alien, every tree watching. I replayed every conversation I'd had with Rachel in the last 2 weeks. Every time she'd sat on our couch. Every time Rick wandered into the kitchen like he owned the place. Every time Raina tossed her boots on my coffee table and laughed like nothing could touch her. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I didn't tell Logan what I was thinking. Instead, that night, I stood in the middle of our gutted living room, staring at the blank space where the lockbox used to be, and something inside me just shut off. It didn't feel like just a robbery. It felt like someone reached into my chest and twisted. And the worst part, they were still smiling in my face. They still thought I didn't know. Logan tried to patch things up the best he could. He replaced the lockbox, moved the couch to cover the scuffed floor where the stereo cords had been yanked out, even got me a new incense holder when I didn't ask for. A stupid silver dragon. He said he thought it would make me smile. I didn't smile. I couldn't, because every time I sat in that room I saw ghosts. Ghosts of everything we worked for, everything I gave away with open hands, thinking I was surrounded by friends. I didn't sleep much. Couldn't eat. Couldn't even smoke right. Just sat on the back steps, burning one down to the filter, barely tasting it. My mind was moving all the time, calculating, revisiting conversations, tracking schedules like a detective with red string in her head. Rachel showed up 2 days after I got back. Walked in like nothing had changed, a bottle of cheap wine in one hand, wearing a brand new leather jacket that looked nothing like her usual thrift store flannel. Damn, you look like hell, she said, laughing. They don't feed you upstate, or what? I stared at her for a second too long. She poured herself a glass, poured one for me, even though I hadn't asked. Sat cross-legged on the couch like she owned it. We should do something tonight, she said. You need a distraction. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab her by the throat and ask her if it felt good, stealing from someone who trusted her with everything. But I didn't. I nodded, smiled, took the wine. Rick and Raina came by later. Rick swaggered in, sunglasses on inside, smelling like cologne and cheap weed. Raina followed him, chewing gum like she was trying to crush it with her teeth. She sat down beside me, too close, flipping through my CDs like she gave a damn about anything other than herself. Rick cracked a joke about free samples. I didn't laugh. Raina twitched when the back door creaked. Every word they said scratched something raw inside me, but I didn't show it. I nodded, smiled, played along. Because I needed them to keep coming around. I needed to watch them dig their own graves. They started slipping, little by little. Rachel talking about a tattoo she wanted, something expensive. Rick bragging about hooking up with someone who owed him. Raina flinching every time a car slowed outside. They were edgy, wired, not in control anymore. One night, I caught Rachel staring at the shelf where the lockbox used to be. Not at the books, not at the incense. Just that space. Shame about the robbery, she said real soft. Could have been worse, right? Right. That's when it hit me fully. Not just suspicion, but certainty. She wasn't just lying to me. She was good at it. Like it wasn't even personal to her. Like stepping over me to get what she wanted was just another Tuesday. But the scariest part wasn't that they lied. It was how easily they kept lying to my face. They say revenge is best served cold. But mine? Mine had to be precise, measured, slow, and impossible to trace. I wasn't going to scream, wasn't going to cry, or show my hand. I'd already done the screaming part. I'd already collapsed behind closed doors when no one was looking. This was going to be something different. I didn't want them gone. I wanted them broken. It started with a name, then another, then a shadowy introduction in a smoky garage behind an abandoned mechanic shop, the kind of place with rusted tools still on the pegboard and oil stains soaked so deep into the concrete they might as well be permanent. I showed up looking like curiosity wrapped in nerves. Played the part of the girl who wanted to try something harder. Just once. Something real. The dealer was older, soft-spoken. Wore aviators even inside. He watched me like he was trying to decide if I was a cop or a liability. But I knew how to talk. I asked stupid questions. I smiled too wide. I told him I didn't want to buy, just wanted to know. To understand. Eventually, I stopped looking like a risk. Week by week, I let myself be seen in the places people like me shouldn't go. I made friends with his friends. Learned the terms. Learned the etiquette. Earned just enough trust. Then I started inviting him over. At first, it was just to hang out. A blunt, a beer, some music. I'd say, "Hey, my friends might drop by, they're chill." And when Rick came through the door the first time and saw him sitting at my table, his eyes flicked from me to the kit and back again, and I could practically feel the gears grinding behind his smirk. "This your guy?" Rick asked. I laughed. "He's just hanging out. But yeah, he's got something wild." Rick's eyebrows arched. Curiosity. Greed. It was all there like clockwork. I played it slow. Weeks passed. I made sure they came over more often. I stopped offering the usual pills, the usual acid. Started hinting at something better. Something intense. "It's like dreaming with your eyes open," I told Rachel the first time she asked. She looked skeptical. "That sounds like something that could ruin my week." I smiled. "Only if you stop." That got her. I didn't pressure them. Didn't need to. All I did was create the environment safe, warm, nostalgic. I played the same records we used to chill to before everything shattered. I cooked. I rolled joints. I made it feel like it used to be, like I wasn't hurt, like nothing was wrong. And then one night I brought it out. Just enough. A sliver of a sliver. A whisper of powder laid out on the edge of a polished mirror, folded like gift. They hesitated, the way you hesitate at a cliff's edge before the leap. But curiosity eats people alive. And the second Rick picked it up, Rachel followed. Raina too. I didn't even touch it that night. I told them I would later. Said I wanted to feel the vibe first. Watch them instead. Watch their pupils swallow their irises. Watch their muscles loosen. Watch them float. And I knew. They didn't see a setup. They saw generosity, familiarity, friendship. That's how I knew it would work. The next night, they asked for more. I said sure. I made it casual. I never charged them. I kept the music soft, the lighting warm. I let them joke and sprawl across my couch like nothing had changed. I laughed when they laughed, poured drinks when they looked thirsty. Every time they said, "Damn, you're the best," I nodded, and handed them the poison they asked for. Over the next few weeks, they started showing up earlier, staying later. Rachel stopped wearing makeup. Rick got quieter. Raina twitched more, scratched her arms even when nothing itched. They started calling ahead, then showing up without warning. They didn't even realize it yet, but they were already hooked. And I just kept smiling, passing the needle like it was communion, until the night Rick leaned over to the dealer, all casual and slick, and asked, "Yo, you got a number?" From the kitchen, I froze. That was it. That was the moment I'd been waiting for. I turned on the faucet, washed my hands real slow, dried them on the same towel Rachel used earlier. When I came back, I acted like I hadn't heard a thing. But inside, I was already closing the door behind them. They never saw the exit coming. That's the beautiful thing about dependency. It clouds judgment, slows reaction time. And by the time you notice the door shut, you're already locked inside. After Rick slid that greasy little request across the table, "You get a pager?" I knew it was done. The hook was buried deep, and all I had to do was start pulling the line. The next time they called, I let it ring twice before answering. Sounded breathless, like I'd just come from somewhere important. "Hey, yeah, tonight's not great. My cousin's over with her kids. Kinda chaotic." They mumbled something. Probably assumed it was a one-off. 2 nights later, Rachel showed up anyway. I opened the door just enough to let her see my face and said, "Ugh, I'm wiped. Just got off a double at work. Can we do tomorrow?" She hesitated, lips cracked at the edges, eyes darting like a skittish animal. But she nodded. "Yeah, no problem." She wasn't listening to my words. She was watching my hands, my face, trying to read if I had something inside. Not friendship, not even dope, just the possibility of it. That faint hope, that little glimmer. The look of someone peering into a locked store after closing time, desperate to see movement. I gave her none. I shut the door slowly. Next time, I didn't answer the phone. And the time after that, I changed my number. They started coming by, knocking. Sometimes gently, sometimes hard enough to rattle the windows. I stayed silent, crouched behind the couch, barely breathing. One night, I heard Rick outside, shouting my name. I could hear the edge in his voice, panic buried under anger, like he couldn't decide if he wanted to fight me or beg me. I smiled in the dark, because now they weren't coming over to chill. They were coming to feed, and I was done feeding them. A week passed. Then 2. I moved to a different apartment, something smaller, quieter. Just me, and the coin box I made sure was still hidden exactly where I told my boyfriend to put it. He never understood why I cared so much about those coins. He still doesn't, but they reminded me of where I came from, who I used to be before all this. Before Rachel, before Rick, before Raina. I watched from a distance. Word travels fast in a town like ours. I heard Rachel got caught shoplifting at a Walgreens. Some half-melted makeup and cold meds. Rick was picked up for possession. Tried to run, but didn't make it past the parking lot. Raina was spotted behind a gas station, barefoot, screaming at the sky. And me? I went to work. Smiled at customers. Stacked shelves. Came home. I never called the cops. Never said a word. I let the world take its course, slow and cruel. Let them rot inside their own decisions. Let them chase something they thought was magic. Something I made them think was mine to give. They thought I was their golden goose, but I was just holding the syringe. And now I was gone. You know what the worst part was? They still don't know I did it on purpose. It started as a whisper, not the kind people say in your ear, but the kind that floats around grocery aisles and bar counters. A low murmur that creeps through town like wind under a door. I wasn't looking for updates. I didn't need them, but they found me anyway. Did you hear about Rachel? The cashier at the drugstore said it while scanning a pack of gum. Her voice was casual, like she was talking about the weather. Busted again. Stealing eyeliner and cough syrup. Same Walgreens she hit last month. I didn't react. Just nodded, like I barely remembered the name. But I remembered. I remembered everything. A week later, I heard Rick tried robbing a gas station with a crowbar. They said he was sweating, twitching, barely coherent. Clerk didn't even resist. Just handed him the drawer and called the cops. Rick didn't make it 10 feet before the cruiser pulled up. His mugshot showed a bloated face and sunken eyes, like the heroin had eaten his skin from the inside out. Raina didn't go down loud like Rick. She vanished for a while. Then someone said she'd been picked up behind a strip mall, blowing some trucker in exchange for a fix. They found a dirty rig and a baggie in her purse. No ID, just a dead phone and a broken lighter. One by one, the dominoes fell. The house that used to hum with music and muffled laughter went dark. The porch light stopped working. The lawn overgrew. No more cars parked out front. No more bass thumping through the walls. They weren't part of anyone's Friday night anymore. People stopped saying their names like they knew them. Now they were cautionary tales, cautionary looks passed over coffee cups and cigarettes. I stayed quiet, distant, watched from my small apartment above the laundromat, folding uniforms after long shifts, cashing retail checks that barely covered rent. I kept my head down, stayed out of the scene, and no one suspected a thing. Sometimes I wondered if they ever thought back to those nights, to my smile, the warmth, the laughter, the free highs that didn't cost $1 until they cost everything. But I doubted it. Addiction has a way of rewriting memory. What starts as a favor becomes a need, then a hunger, then a scream. I didn't scream. They did. And in the end, I didn't need to raise a hand or shout a word. I just opened the door and let gravity do the rest. I moved out quietly. No announcement. No farewell party. Just a few cardboard boxes, a friend's borrowed truck, and a long drive down unfamiliar road. My boyfriend, well, ex by then, watched from the porch as I left. He didn't say much. We both knew the good parts of us had been packed away long before I loaded up the last box. We'd built something fragile, and maybe it was never meant to last. After the robbery, after the revenge, after everything, I was different. Not colder, not crueler, just harder to reach. He wanted to pretend things could be like before, but there was no before left in me. I rented a tiny studio across town, above an old bookstore that always smelled like paper and dust. It wasn't much. Cracked windows, thin walls, a radiator that groaned in the winter. But it was mine. Mine, in a way nothing had ever truly been. I never touched heroin again. Never sold another pill or hit. That part of my life, I burned it down. Watched the smoke rise and refused to look back. The parties, the people, the late-night chaos, I let it all go. I kept to myself. Quiet, sober, sharp. I got a better job eventually. Started managing a thrift store run by a retired couple who treated me like a daughter. I saved my checks. Paid off what I owed. Bit by bit, I built something quieter, sturdier. Something no one could just walk in and take from me. I didn't go looking for closure. Didn't need it. I didn't get my money back. Never saw those drugs again. But what I gained, it was heavier than any bag of cash. I got my silence. I got my strength. I got my spine. The world didn't clap for me. No slow motion applause, no credits rolling. Just new mornings. Cleaner ones. Still, sometimes when I'm walking home with the sky cracked open in gold and the wind cool on my face, I feel it. The shift, like I stepped out of a burning room and finally closed the door. They say revenge doesn't change anything, that it doesn't fill the hole. Maybe. But sometimes it clears the wreckage so you can build something real in its place. Some people don't deserve a warning. They deserve the weight of their own choices crashing down on them. Rachel, Rick, Raina, they didn't rob me. They freed me. From my trust. From my weakness. From them. If your best friend robbed you, would you forgive? Or would you make sure they never forgot?